Israel's put out a warning to people living over there that if they are considering visiting Australia and 79 other countries, that they ought to do so with caution because there is so much concern now over the rising levels of anti-Semitism. We've been added to this list of basically a threat level, they call it. Now, ours is reasonably mild compared to some other parts of the world, but it is an acknowledgement for the first time, and you can see the map there, the green bits, the US, Canada, etc., are the countries where Israel says you don't have to worry about going. But there we are, Australia, on the same level as Russia and China. Now, it's not hard to work out how this might have happened. You can't really blame Israel for taking this stance when you saw last week in Melbourne the families of hostages, both those who were captive and killed, came as a delegation to talk and were taunted. Threatened. They weren't threatened per se. They were certainly intimidated and harassed for purely coming to this country and having hostages in their own families by these pro-Hamas protesters, and the police did nothing about it. In fact, the police minister down in Victoria refused to give any kind of protection to these people. But it all started on October the 8th. We were one of the first places in the world where for everyone to see, we broadcast, allowed to be said, the most vile things about Jewish people. Is it any wonder that Israel would now say that us, a Western nation that has traditionally been an ally of Israel, is not the safest place for a Jew to go and visit?
I never in my wildest dreams imagined that foreign governments would warn their people about coming to Australia, and particularly an Israeli government. The government in Israel warning citizens, if you go to Australia, hide your identity, don't display it, obviously. And as you rightly pointed out, of course they'd make those warnings. And it's not just idiots on the steps of the Opera House. We've got senators who are standing beside highly anti-Semitic signs. And of course, as you said, that delegation of families from Israel who have got family members who've been killed or still being held hostage, and they had their hotel protested against by pro-Palestinian supporters. And the ambassador of Israel in Australia rang the police minister and said, please, can we get some protection for these people? And they didn't supply it. It was only when they got to New South Wales they got police protection, but they denied the police protection. Could you imagine if the Chinese embassy rang the Victorian police minister and said, hey, we've got a delegation of Chinese officials here, they need some protection, would that be OK? I reckon the police in Victoria would be there in 3 minutes. But there's this picking and choosing by police in Victoria that's systematic of the situation that Jews just aren't safe in Australia right now.
And it's all social
not just from idiots, but even from police won't protect them.
It's all social conditioning. People are watching this, and that affects the national psyche. We all know this would be incredibly different under a Liberal government because I can't name a single Liberal, correct me if I'm wrong, who has not unquestioningly supported Israel and been very, very strong in their support thereof. Whereas Israel, with this announcement today, it's basically just like, with friends like Australian Labor politicians, who needs enemies? Because we all know that the cops are just law enforcers. They take their job seriously, but they can only work within the laws that are created by the law makers. We all know that it would have probably come down to Premier Minns on the night of that tragic scene out the front of the Opera House. Do you send the riot squad in? Do you not? Again, I've said this till I'm blue in the face. We have yet to see any kind of strong pushback in terms of law enforcement. We had Nazis just strolling through Ballarat like it ain't no thing over the weekend. Again, where was any kind of police? Because that is what the media would be able to latch onto then and be like, not necessarily fisticuffs, but police having stern words, like we watch elsewhere all around the world at these kinds of things, being like, mate, what are you doing here? What do you think you're doing, etc. and so on. That's the kind of thing that we need to go viral to massage that into the national psyche and get that social cohesion back. We're just not seeing any of it.
Well, you've got to send a message somehow, because by not sending the message, as has continuously happened, we keep seeing these examples of anti-Semitism.